This man cheated death 7 times, but what happened next will shock you. His name is Franz Selleck, and when he was 33 years old, his train crashed into a river, killing 17 people, but he managed to survive. 1 year later, he was flying on an airplane when the plane doors blew open, and he blew out with it. All 17 passengers and crew would pass away in the crash, but against all odds, Franz survived by landing on a haystack. 4 years later, he was on a bus that plunged into a river, killing 4 people, but not him. Over the next 3 years, his gas tank would explode 2 separate times, but he escaped both incidents without any major injuries. Soon after that, while walking, he was hit by a bus, but survived with only a few injuries. But in 2003, his life changed forever. He went on to win $1 million in the Croatian lottery. He truly is the most lucky person ever. This security video shows Jeremy Griffin walk into a substance abuse treatment clinic with an AR-15. He quickly fires one shot at the wall and yells at Ronaldo Beckford, the unarmed security guard, to get on the ground. But Beckford immediately leaps towards the gunman and wrestles him into a corner, pins him up against the wall, and eventually drags him outside before other guards come to his aid. Griffin was arrested and charged with several felonies, including second-degree attempted murder, yet he has pleaded not guilty. But if it wasn't for Beckford, many lives could have been lost that day. Interesting as f***. A 9,000-year-old skeleton was found inside a cave in Cheddar, England, and nicknamed Cheddarman. His DNA was tested, and it was concluded that a living relative was teaching history about a half-mile away, tracing back nearly 300 generations. In 1996, Ukraine handed over nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for a guarantee never to be threatened or invaded. This is a sped-up video showing 150 kilos or roughly 330 pounds of acorns a squirrel stocked up inside a transmitting antenna. This video shows a Boeing 747's wings during a flight. It shows how flexible the wings are in order to absorb turbulence and keep the plane stable. This is a photorealistic image of George Washington if he lived in the present day. This time-lapse shows a wound on a finger healing over the course of 33 days. These conjoined brothers who are attached at the hip do not want to be separated. Shivanath and Shivram Sahu are conjoined twins from India who are attached at the waist. The twins share 2 legs and 4 arms but have separate hearts and brains, and despite sharing a body, they actually live a pretty normal life. They're able to shower, eat, and dress themselves, and they even found out a way to ride their bike to school together. However, life is about to get a lot more complicated for the twins, as doctors say they can't actually be separated. If they tried to, the weaker one, Shivanath, would most likely die. Shivram, the stronger one, would most likely retain both legs and live a normal life, but the twins say even if they could afford the surgery, they wouldn't do it, because any challenge they face in life, they want to face together. The NFL has hired private investigators to stop this man because he has broken into the Super Bowl 35 times. And I promise you, you are not going to believe the Hall of Fame picture of him I show you at the end. The thing about Dion Rich is that he is a great talker. He has snuck into parties at the Playboy Mansion and met tons of famous people, including NFL players. So before Super Bowl 1, he found out where the bus was going to drop off the Kansas City Chiefs. He simply got there before them, put on a team jacket, and walked into the locker rooms. And he was hooked. After that, he snuck into almost every Super Bowl using disguises, until the NFL started seeing pictures of him at every Super Bowl, so they started to look out for him. No problem though, because he was friends with some Denver Broncos before Super Bowl 12. He got a ride with them and stayed on the sidelines. The Cowboys ended up winning, but they got this photo of Dion Rich carrying the Cowboys head coach. This woman did you-know-what with 919 men in one single day. Lisa Sparks set this record back in 2004 at the annual World Championships in Poland. She was competing against 2 other women, one of which was the current record holder who did you-know-what with 759 men in one day. But the craziest part is Lisa set this record in only 12 hours, meaning she only spent 45 seconds with each man. These videos show what lies underneath Disneyland, a sprawling and massive system of underground tunnels. One of the purposes of the tunnels is to keep the magic alive by hiding the characters when they're not supposed to be seen. Emergency vehicles also use the tunnels to get to their patient while trying to be unseen by the public so they don't kill the vibe. And here are some more things that Disneyland doesn't want you to know. For a long time, there's been a rumor that some of the bones on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride are from real human skeletons. In 2014, a rider asked an employee about the rumor as he was getting off the ride, and she said the skeleton sitting above the bed in the treasure room contains a real human skull. Disneyland strategically releases different scents all around the park through smellitizers, which look like speakers. The one they use the most is a vanilla scent, as it is scientifically proven to calm people down and make them hungry, so they spend more money on food. These are the saddest and most wholesome graves in the entire world. This grieving mother added a sandbox to her little boy's grave who had passed away unexpectedly, and now his older brother plays in it every single day. This is the gravesite of a boy who died of an incurable illness in 1865. A few hours before he died, he told his dad he was scared of death because he knew they were gonna bury him underground with no lights. So the parents honored his wish and put a window in his tomb. After her daughter died of yellow fever in 1892, a grieving mother wanted to make sure that her little girl was never alone. You see, her daughter was absolutely terrified of storms, so she constructed a staircase that goes directly down into her tomb. Every time there was a thunderstorm, that mother would go to the graveyard and sit with her daughter for hours, comforting her in her grave. This 24-year-old YouTuber convinced the world that he was Harry Styles. In February 2022, a mysterious TikTok account with the username Sumanella spawned with no profile picture or bio. The account only had a few videos and barely any views until it posted a video of a plaque from Spotify congratulating the singer Harry Styles on reaching 1 billion streams on his song Watermelon Sugar. Suddenly, Harry fans began to fixate on the account, with many convinced that the singer had set up a secret page to promote his next album. Fans pointed out that Harry was allegedly recently captured in paparazzi photos carrying a bag with a big Spotify box. These speculative videos amassed millions of views on TikTok, and the Sumanella page gained 700,000 followers in a few days. But the TikTok account did not belong to Harry Styles nor his team. 2 months later, 24-year-old YouTuber George Mason revealed that the Sumanella TikTok account actually belonged to him and everything was just a big catfish prank. Genius people who beat the system. Part 16. This dad bet his daughter $100 that she wouldn't be able to get the ball from the wine glass into the small cup without being able to touch the ball, flip over the wine glass, or touch the small cup. So this is what she did.
That's not how busy, that's not even gonna...
A guy really wanted to have the high score on the arcade's basketball shooting game, but knew he couldn't do it legitimately. But that's when he realized that all he had to do was hit the bottom of the net and the game would think he scored. So he did that instead and got the high score. We all know that most dogs hate having their nails trimmed, but TikToker Lily Ford discovered that if she put plastic wrap and a spoonful of peanut butter on her head, she could distract her dog and easily trim its nails. Sad things you never noticed in Spider-Man No Way Home. In this scene, Tom's Peter doesn't mention Osborn's cure and puts it to the side. Because he doesn't want to cure him, he wants to kill him for what he did to Aunt May. When he slams it on the table, Toby immediately notices and says this.
Gotta cure all of them, right?
Right.
That's what we do.
You can see the conflict in Tom in this scene, and this is when Toby realized he had to keep an eye on Tom whenever Osborn showed up. This man got so fed up with people doing the nasty outside his house that he began filming them by setting up surveillance cameras on top of a light pole. His name is Marty, and he tracks everything he sees happening at the park outside his home.
I have seen and recorded probably 50-some sex events.
For example, this couple gets frisky out in the open for any passerby to see. Afterwards, they adjust their clothing and take off. These lovebirds climb into the back of their car, and as things get steamy, Marty, the neighborhood watchman, actually confronts them. This guy appears to be rolling a joint. Marty calls the cops and he's issued a warning.
I'm just a guy that is protecting my neighborhood and my family.
He says he videos everything to offer it to the police department to use as evidence against the people committing crimes. But the question is, do you think he's doing the right thing? This 76-year-old man saved the lives of all of his students from a school shooter, and the way he did it is so heroic. On April 16th, 2007, 76-year-old Dr. Labrescu was teaching his engineering class at Virginia Tech when all of a sudden, a shooter opened fire in the school and was about to burst into his classroom. But without hesitation, Dr. Labrescu, who was a Holocaust survivor, showed his courageous personality once again as he sprinted to the door and held it shut with his own body. He shouted out orders for his 22 students to kick out the windows and jump down to the first floor and escape. As all of his students made it to safety, Dr. Labrescu was shot 5 times through the door, including one to the head, which sadly killed him. The killer, named Cho Sang-hoo, killed 32 people that day before taking his own life. But the death total that day would have been a lot higher if it wasn't for Dr. Labrescu's heroic actions. This man woke up with a black eye, but when he finds a note from his wife, he discovers the heartwarming truth. Ryan was a married man who went out one night to party with an old female friend. They were having a great time until Ryan began drinking way too much. His wife was at home with their baby and 10-year-old son, but she had no idea what was about to happen. Ryan stumbled around the bar before getting into the bathroom with his friend and blacking out. When Ryan woke up, he was on his kitchen floor with no recollection of what happened the night before. He went to the bathroom to find out not only did he have a black eye, but that his wife wasn't home and that she left him a note on the kitchen counter. As he started reading, he knew something was terribly wrong, but then he saw a picture was attached and he could not believe his eyes. It turns out Ryan's friend drove him home because he was a little too messed up. When his wife went to undress him for bed, he screamed no, saying he was married. So he never cheated and was loyal to his wife after all. This girl was known as being the ugliest bride in the world, but you won't believe what she looks like now. So in 2011, this couple posted their wedding photos to Facebook and it instantly went viral. Every news page from across the world was calling her the world's ugliest bride. Everyone was commenting how she was ugly, extremely overweight, and had a receding hairline at just 30 years old. This took a toll on her mental health and she became extremely depressed. Things only got worse when her husband left her right after they just had a baby. This completely changed her outlook on life and she finally decided to turn her life around. So she worked out every single day for 4 years straight, and you seriously won't believe what she looks like now. Before I show you, I just found an app where you can make a baby with literally anyone. Just press here on my profile if you want to make a baby too. This is what she looks like today. I'm not kidding. She had the biggest glow up anyone has ever seen. This girl waved at the same cop every single day, but the one day that she doesn't, he finds out the heartbreaking truth. Kayla grew up with her mom and 2 brothers, and they were extremely poor. They lived in a rough area, and after Kayla's mom got into drugs, Kayla was left to feed her siblings. Her life was falling apart, but there was one moment in her day that brought her joy. It was her opportunity to wave to her favorite police officer who patrolled the streets every day. Over the next few months, they met at the exact same spot and waved to each other every single day, and he became a father-like figure for her. However, one day everything changed when the cop went to the regular meeting spot and Kayla wasn't there. He instantly knew something was wrong, so he broke into her house and heard screaming coming from upstairs. He found Kayla on the floor, pale and shivering. The cop immediately rushed her to the hospital, saving her life. Kayla made a full recovery and is actually now training to become a cop herself. The safest country in the world is Iceland. The crime rate is so low there that the police don't even carry guns, and they're pretty much friends with everyone. The SWAT team does possess firearms, but they never have to use them. That's because the murder rate is from 0 to 1.5 a year, but there's almost no reason to commit any crimes. An entire college degree costs less than a month's rent, almost nobody is out of work, and if you get fired, the government's got your back. Plus, they're the most gender equal country in the entire world, and their pride is the only one that's never been protested. And there's no dangerous animals except for the Arctic fox, which is so cute and doesn't even bother anyone, and they don't even have mosquitoes. It's so safe that people will leave their babies alone in public for hours at a time. They just know that nobody's gonna take them. This mother sold her dead son's bed, but you won't believe why the buyer returned it 1 week later. Before she could give birth, Valerie Watt's son died and she didn't know what to do with his belongings after he passed away. So she decided to sell everything in a yard sale about a year later. Her son's crib was purchased by a man named Gerald, who decided to do something special while he was driving home with her son's crib. Gerald took the crib, turned it into a chair, and then gave it back to her so she could use it to sit around in her house. Now she can keep the memory of her son in her room. This young soldier was made fun of for believing in God until a miracle happens. During World War II, an 18-year-old boy named Matt was bullied every day just for believing in God. One day his commander called him over just to make fun of him in front of everyone. He ordered Matt to park a jeep in front of the military base. Matt explained he had no idea how to drive. Then the commander screamed, "Why don't you ask for assistance from your so-called God?" And everyone laughed. Even though Matt was scared, he took the keys and drove the jeep, just like the commander asked. He stepped out of the jeep to see all of the soldiers in tears. Even the commander took his hat off in disbelief of what he just saw. Matt was completely confused until the commander opened up the hood of the jeep. He opened the hood of the jeep to reveal there was no engine. Matt cried and said, "See, this is the God that I serve. Now share this story if you believe in miracles." The nurse put this dying baby beside her twin sister to say goodbye, but it's what happens after that will make you cry. Twin sisters Kyrie and Brielle Jackson were born in Massachusetts in 1995. They were born 2 months early, so they were struggling to breathe and stay alive. So they were put in separate incubators to make sure they would stay alive. As the days passed, Kyrie's condition got better while Brielle's got worse. She was turning blue and was just barely alive. Brielle was dying and the nurse was doing everything she could to help her, but it wasn't working. A few days later, the nurse decided it was finally time to let go. So she put Brielle beside Kyrie to say one last goodbye. But as she felt the presence of her twin sister, something amazing happened. The nurse couldn't believe it. Brielle began to breathe normally again and made a full recovery. This is Kyrie and Brielle today, happy and healthy. Lionel Messi spent over $250 million on his 3 most expensive purchases. And at number 3, his custom $15 million private jet. With 16 seats, a full kitchen, TVs, and on the steps, it even spells out all of his family's names. But at number 2, Messi's $35 million purchase almost got stolen by Ronaldo. Since him and Messi wanted the exact same car and there was only one left, everything came down to an auction. But when Messi showed up, he proved who the real GOAT is and spent $35 million on a Ferrari Spider. But at number 1, Messi's most expensive purchase ever cost more than life itself. Messi wanted his fans to have a place that would create the most fun they've ever had, with entertainment like theaters, holographic technology, and virtual reality. This place even allows fans to relive Messi's rise to fame. So Messi became the only football player ever to have his own $200 million theme park. Terrifying things said by astronauts. One of the most mysterious aspects of the moon landing is Neil Armstrong's first words when he stepped on the lunar surface. Most of us were taught that his famous quote was, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." However, NASA has disclosed that there was a 2-minute transmission loss just before Armstrong's famous words were spoken. During this lost transmission, Armstrong reportedly made an unsettling statement to NASA. Multiple sources have confirmed he said, "These babies are huge, sir. Enormous. Oh God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecrafts out here lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." This statement was never heard by the public as the transmission was cut off for 2 minutes and Armstrong never mentioned it again. Genius people who beat the system. A girls' college had a rule that said you can't have carved pumpkins in your dorm room, but the rule didn't say anything about pineapples, so she went ahead and carved one of those. Next, this guy's new job required a photo of him in a suit for their website, but since he doesn't own a suit, he just photoshopped his face over this guy's face, and honestly, it looks pretty real, so I can't blame him. Next, this sign says no bicycle riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but it doesn't say no unicycling, so he isn't exactly breaking the rules. Next, these signs say that if you park on this side, you have to pay for parking, and if you park on the other side, you will get towed. So this guy parked in between both of the signs, so he doesn't have to do either. That's pure genius. Next, a guy posted this photo online and said whenever he parks illegally, he puts a fake ticket on his windshield so the cops won't give him a real one. That's pretty creative. Genius people who beat the system. First up, a class of students were required to pick a Marvel character and then write a resume and cover letter pretending to be them. A student thought of the perfect idea and picked Groot, and since all he says is, "I am Groot," that's what he put for everything. Next, a girl's mom locked her phone in the bottom drawer because she misbehaved. But her daughter realized that all she had to do was take out the top drawer and she could get her phone back. Next, a girl's dad went to Vegas for 5 days and put a camera in the living room to make sure she didn't have any parties. But the girl wasn't going to let that stop her, so she came up with this pretty creative solution. Next, this parking spot says only green vehicles can park there, but I think the owner of this car took that a little too serious. Next, this kid was playing a game on his laptop when his mom told him to go play outside, so he literally grabbed his laptop and played outside. Genius people who beat the system.
This student was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in blue pen and another page in red pen. They then brought 3D glasses to class, so when they looked through the blue side, they could see the red pen, and when they looked through the red side, they could see the blue pen. Next, a couple's landlord said that they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, so they got hundreds of paint strips and covered the walls with them. Next, a teacher wouldn't allow students to eat in class, so a kid filled this empty lip balm with cheese so he could sneak it in. Next, this kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland, so he put not Greenland and the teacher actually marked it right. Next, this kid's mom told him that food wasn't allowed in the living room and his tablet wasn't allowed in the kitchen, so it's safe to say that he beat the system. Biggest movie mistakes you never noticed. First up in the movie Zootopia, there's one obvious mistake that most people have never noticed. In this scene where Judy is on the phone with her parents, you can clearly see that the time says 8:40 p.m. But then just a couple of seconds later, when she puts her phone down, you can see it says 9:44 p.m. How does that even happen? Next, in the movie Inside Out, there's one mistake I'm shocked made the final cut. In this scene where Riley is running through her living room, you can see a white cable running along the floor. But just moments later, when we see the cable again, all of a sudden it's black. For something like that to happen, the editing team would have to reanimate the cable to be a different color, but why would they do that? Next up is Big Hero 6, and the mistake in this one is very similar to the last one. In this scene where Hero meets Professor Callahan, you can see his shirt is blue, but when he reaches out, it turns red, and then it turns back to blue again. I honestly have no words for that one.
This European general may not be widely known in America, but he was one of the most impressive generals to have ever lived. Jan Žižka was a Czech general born in 1360 who led forces against 3 crusades and never lost a single battle. He was such a badass they made a blockbuster action movie about him called Medieval. It's an R-rated, gritty, violent, and entertaining movie starring Ben Foster and Michael Caine that is a definite must-watch. His armies fought with makeshift weapons to defeat heavily armed opponents who always vastly outnumbered his own troops. His tactics were unorthodox and innovative, to say the least. He essentially created the medieval version of the tank, 500 years before the tank was invented. The armored war wagons he used allowed his troops to defend from oncoming cavalry and infantry attacks. Oh, and he won his battles with only one good eye since he lost vision in one early in his life. If that's not impressive enough, he remained undefeated on the battlefield after going completely blind in both eyes later in his life. Make sure you go and see Medieval in theaters this weekend.
Will humans ever be able to teleport? Well, believe it or not, teleportation is actually already possible, and I don't mean theoretically possible, but actually possible. The bad news is, it's a little bit different than what is shown in movies and TV shows. It isn't full-on human teleportation, but rather it is quantum teleportation, which is the transfer of information. It lets us transfer information on the quantum level between things that are not physically linked, meaning we could potentially use this technology to teleport the entire molecular makeup of an entire human being, and use that perfect blueprint to build an exact copy somewhere else far away, which is basically teleportation. But there's actually an easy way to teleport right now if you want. If you get Genshin Impact, you can unlock waypoints that allow you to teleport instantly across 4 huge regions. Sumeru, the last region, is now available with the 3.0 version update. In case you haven't heard about Genshin Impact, it's a free-to-play open-world elemental strategy combat game that has won multiple Mobile Game of the Year awards, but it's also available on multi-platforms. Click here on my profile to get it.
Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Next, Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Next, students from the University of Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now, people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Next, scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Starting off in South Korea, some red traffic lights have a countdown delay that shows you how long it will be until it turns green. And it has been proven to reduce the accident rate by more than 50%. Next, you can say goodbye to hard-to-reach wall sockets with the Rambler socket. The Rambler socket has an extension cord built into the wall itself and can also be used the normal way. It contains about 5 feet of extra cabling and only requires a gentle tug to coil it back into the wall. Next, the Let's Pizza vending machine is the only machine in the world that can prepare Italian pizza from scratch in under 3 minutes, and the machine actually offers 4 different varieties of pizzas. Next, with this adjustable hot sauce, you can pick your spice levels. The clever device mixes a blend of mild and hot sauce, so all you have to do is twist the cap and select the level of heat you want. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. Next, there's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. Next, in the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Legos. Next, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button is to let the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second button is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third button is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. Next, 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone by using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die, and people who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. Next, the Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed when purchasing things from people in your city.
Mother Gothel from Tangled is the evil queen from Snow White. At the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff, but we never actually see her die. But what does happen is that she finds the magical flower from the movie Tangled, which makes her young and beautiful again. Because remember, both the evil queen and Mother Gothel were obsessed with being young and beautiful. Also, it's very convenient that at the end of Snow White, the evil queen falls off a cliff. And in the movie Tangled, Mother Gothel finds the magical flower at the edge of a cliff. And to add on to that point further, both movies take place in Germany. Both women have the same exact dagger and look very similar in their older state. Also, even though both women never had children of their own, both of their names actually translate to mother. Also, the famous red apple from the movie Snow White actually shows up in Tangled here after Mother Gothel stabs Flynn.
Mr. Beast crew members who got fired or disappeared without explanation, Part 6. Jake Weddle was once a frequent face on the Mr. Beast channel, however he gradually began to disappear from the videos. It wasn't until a month after his final appearance in the "I filled my brother's house with slime and bought him a new one" video that Jake would upload a video to his personal channel titled "Why I Left Mr. Beast." In the video, Jake explained that he left the Mr. Beast team in order to pursue a career in stand-up comedy full-time. And in the end, his relationship with Mr. Beast ended on good terms and they both still consider each other friends. Dumbest lottery winners, Part 4. Back in 2010, Jose Antonio won a $750,000 jackpot, but at the time he was living in the US illegally. And rather than risk deportation by claiming the prize himself, Jose asked his boss to claim the money on his behalf. But after his boss claimed the money, he began to falsely claim that he had actually purchased the winning ticket. Jose sued his boss, and he was able to use security camera footage of him purchasing the ticket to prove that he was the rightful owner of the money. But even though he won the court case, things didn't exactly go smoothly from there. After paying taxes and court fees, Jose was left with only $250,000 of his winnings. And to top it all off, he was then jailed for drunk driving and was eventually deported back to Guatemala. The dumbest lottery winners, Part 5. Back in 1996, Dennis Rossi won a jackpot of $1.3 million. However, instead of telling her husband, Thomas Rossi, about her winnings, she filed for divorce just 11 days later. Thomas had no idea that Dennis had ever won the lottery for 3 years, but when he eventually found out, he launched a lawsuit stating that since they were still married at the time of the win, he was entitled to half of the prize money. And in the end, the judge agreed. He found that Dennis's failure to disclose the lottery winnings constituted fraud, oppression, and malice, and awarded Thomas 100% of the prize money. I'm Gonna Ruin Your Childhood, Part 83. In case you don't know who Dan Schneider is, he was a TV show producer who was responsible for popular shows such as iCarly, Zoe 101, Victorious, and Drake and Josh, to name a few. But he is mostly known for being a creep, and here's just one example. Miranda was celebrating her 18th birthday on set, and here you can see she tries to avoid Dan by stepping back. Pay attention to how he holds her and hugs her. You can clearly see how uncomfortable Miranda looks. Here he looks down at her and she slowly starts to step away from him. Worst ways people have died. In 2008, 17-year-old Asia LaShawn Ferguson was riding the Batman ride at the Six Flags amusement park when his hat flew off his head. After getting off the ride, he scaled 2 fences and entered a restricted area in an attempt to retrieve his hat. As he reached his hat, the Batman ride came barreling towards him at 50 miles per hour and ended up decapitating him instantly. Next, in 2013, 22-year-old Kyle Lee Stocking and his 5 friends saw a rope swing stunt on YouTube and wanted to recreate it. Everything was fine, but there was one fatal thing that they didn't check properly. The length of the rope was longer than the drop down, so when Kyle jumped, he plummeted straight into the ground, killing him instantly. Mr. Beast crew members who got fired or disappeared without explanation, Part 4. Ty made his first appearance in the world's largest bowl of cereal video back in 2019. He was actually picked up on the side of the road by the Mr. Beast crew, and after tons of positive feedback from the viewers in the comments, he was able to return to the channel and appear in a total of 7 different videos. However, despite his popularity on the channel, Ty was never an official member of the Mr. Beast crew. According to the Mr. Beast wiki, he still works for Mr. Beast, but mostly behind the scenes. YouTubers who have spent time in jail or prison, Part 2. In February 2022, Saucy and Honey, who had 25,000 subscribers at the time, posted a video titled 24-Hour Overnight Challenge in Target. In the video, the two hid in a Target store after it closed and filmed themselves walking around the store before walking out in the morning, claiming that they had been there all night. However, the video caught the attention of the West Whiteland police, who saw the video and arrested Johnson LaRose and Charlotte Fisher, the couple behind the Saucy and Honey channel. Not only was the challenge exposed as fake, using security camera footage that showed the two leaving the store at 3 a.m., but they were also charged with criminal trespassing and conspiracy. As a result, Saucy and Honey are now facing up to 7 years in prison for their actions. Mr. Beast crew members who got fired and why, Part 3. Jake the Viking first appeared in the video Do Water Repellent Shoes Actually Work? Back in 2018. At the time, the content on the channel was quite physical, so having Jake as a member of the team was a perfect fit. However, by early 2020, the content on the Mr. Beast channel started to shift away from physical challenges. As a result, Jake began to appear in fewer and fewer videos. His last appearance on the channel was in the $60,000 Extreme Hide and Seek Challenge video. 4 months later, Jake uploaded a video titled Why I Left Mr. Beast, in which he said the best way to describe his departure was that his piece no longer fit the puzzle. He also mentioned that he wanted to leave in order to pursue content creation under his own name, as he wanted to be his own boss and do his own thing. Despite leaving the Mr. Beast team, Jake has maintained success on his own. He has gained over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and over 2.5 million followers on TikTok. Here are some cities that you won't believe actually exist. Number 1 is Whittier, Alaska, where all residents live in the same building. All the residents of the city live in this 14-level building that used to be a former military facility. Inside, it has a school, a police station, a hospital, stores, a church, and more. Number 2 is Miracle Village in Florida. That is a city where only sex offenders live. The sex offenders decided to create their own city out in the middle of nowhere since it's hard for them to find places to live due to their criminal records. Number 3 is the sleeping city of Kalachi, where the residents just randomly fall asleep, even while walking. Between 2012 and 2015, the residents of Kalachi would suddenly begin to slur their words and then fall into a deep sleep that would last days or even weeks. Scientists eventually discovered that it was caused by heightened levels of carbon monoxide from Soviet-era uranium mines in the area. This man is a murderer, cannibal, and necrophile who never served any jail time for his crimes. Yes, you heard that right. Issei Sagawa is known for killing Renee Hartvelt in Paris in 1981. He killed the woman in her own apartment, had sex with her corpse, then consumed various parts of her body. All this while taking pictures of the corpse at each and every stage. But when he tried to dispose of the remains, he got caught by the French police. After being held for 2 years awaiting trial, Sagawa was found legally insane and unfit to stand trial by the French judge. So instead, he was admitted to a mental institution. But because of the publicity his crimes got and the fact that some people started treating him like some sort of celebrity, the French decided to deport him back to Japan. There in the Madzuzawa hospital in Tokyo, he was found by doctors to actually be sane. But as the charges against Sagawa in France had been dropped and the French court reports were sealed, he couldn't legitimately be detained in Japan. He was released from the hospital on August 12, 1986 and has remained free ever since, contrary to widespread criticism. This man managed to fake a coma for 2 years so he could avoid going to jail. After being found guilty in 2012 of stealing 40,000 pounds from his dementia-ridden neighbor, Alan Knight would start to pretend he was paraplegic and sometimes would fall into a coma. Conveniently, this happened every time the authorities visited him. This fake in-and-out coma lasted for 2 years, in which Knight had admitted himself into a hospital for 10 weeks and managed to convince even the doctors of this mysterious illness, meaning he laid there without moving or opening his eyes for almost 2 months. Eventually, 2 years later, police were finally able to find CCTV footage of Alan out shopping and images on his computer of him being just fine. The picture showed him and his wife on holidays, at weddings, Legoland, and many other places where a person with a coma would not be able to go. Alan was jailed for 4.5 years in November 2014 on fraud and forgery charges. People who outlived insane prison sentences. On May 5th, 1975, Otis Johnson was walking down the street when he was stopped and searched by officers in Harlem, New York. The officers alleged Otis fit the description of a man involved in a nearby shooting of a police officer. The description only said that the man was wearing a tan jacket, but that was enough to convince the officers of Johnson's guilt. Somehow, despite a glaring lack of evidence or credible eyewitnesses, Johnson was sentenced to 25 years to life for the attack he was accused of. His good behavior made him eligible for parole 9 times, and during several of his parole hearings, he was told that if he just confessed, he could walk free. Johnson clearly had a backbone made out of pure steel, because each time he refused to confess to a crime he hadn't committed. Fortunately, his 9th parole hearing in 2014 was positive and he was finally released. That means he had been in prison for almost 40 years, all because he was wearing a tan jacket. This woman's story is so insane it might make you not want to win the lottery. In 1999, Tonda Dickerson went from being a waiter barely scraping by to a multi-millionaire overnight. While working at a Waffle House in Alabama, Tonda received a lottery ticket as a tip. 6 days later, Tonda realized she had won $10 million. But shortly after winning the money, Tonda's ex-boyfriend Stacy Martin kidnapped her at gunpoint. He was about to kill her when she took his gun and shot him in the chest. Stacy survived the shot and somehow faced 0 charges after kidnapping and trying to kill Tonda. Her bad luck didn't end after the attack, as she was then faced with a lawsuit by her past co-workers. The lawsuit claimed that Tonda made a verbal agreement with her co-workers to split the prize money. Then the guy who gave her the ticket, Edward Seward, also sued her, claiming she promised him a truck if she ever won the lottery. Luckily for Tonda, she won both of the lawsuits. After that, since Tonda was sharing the money with her family, the IRS imposed a gift tax of $771,000 on it. This man was a rogue serial killer, but now he's a YouTuber. Pedro Rodriguez Fillo started to take lives at 14 years old when he killed the vice mayor of Alfinas with a shotgun for firing his father. While he was on the run, he met Maria Olympia. They quickly fell in love and got engaged. Unfortunately, soon after that, Maria was brutally murdered by rival gang members, so Pedro set out to seek vengeance. He infiltrated a wedding arranged by the rival gang leader and massacred 7 gang members, injuring many more. Soon Pedro got the news that his father was in jail for killing his mother, so he visited him in prison and killed him by stabbing him 22 times. He then carved out his father's heart and bit a piece of it. When he was rearrested in 1973, he claimed the life of 47 inmates. Even though he officially killed 71 people, he was only sentenced to 30 years in prison, since Brazil's maximum prison sentence is 30 years no matter the crime. After spending 34 years of his life in prison, he was released for the final time in 2018, and now runs a YouTube channel to prove he has a good side.